What is up, brothers and sisters? Welcome to the Mitch Gray Show. Another awesome episode ready for you this week. It's so great to meet all these crazy, awesome people in not only America, but in the world. We're going to have all kinds of guests on. And tonight we have another great guest for you, Mr. Mike Pachan. Welcome to the Mitch Gray Show, brother.
Hey, Mitch, thank you so much for having me. Appreciate the time and looking forward to an awesome conversation this evening.
It's going to be good. It's going to be good. We're going to get a good conversation in before you have to continue with your evening, I promise. And so, so Mike, we're going to get into your kind of bio and expertise in a little bit. But I just want our listeners to know that you are the founder and CEO of Mountain Made CBD company. I may have not said that right, but that kind of gives them the gist. So I want to ask a question. Let's just jumpstart this bad boy off the bat. What do you say?
Go ahead, man. Let's chat.
Why CBD? Educate our people on what made you decide, 11 years ago or so, jump into that river to get going. You can't jump into something like that and have the success you have had for no reason. It doesn't just happen, right? So tell us, why CBD?
Yeah, so originally, I've been in cannabis and hemp for 11 years. It'll be 11 years in April. And, you know, it's just one of those things. Sometimes you find your path and sometimes the path finds you. Honest to God, a door opened literally and hit me literally. And that was my start in the cannabis space, which then led to CBD and hemp. They're super close related in the same plant family. But I had a great job out of college. I was a sales rep. I was cruising, doing pretty good down south. And a buddy of mine picked up the phone one day and said, "Do you love it down south?" I said, "I like it." He said, "Do you love it?" I said, "Man, what are you thinking?" And he's like, "Well, you know, I wasn't living in Atlanta." He said, "I was just up in Telluride today, total ski bum town, and they need an assistant manager at their ski shop this winter. Quit what you're doing, pack your stuff up, come live in our basement, hang out for a winter." And he caught me at the right time, man. And I said, okay. So I resigned from a job I had had for 3 years, packed up all my stuff, lived in a basement for 2 months, got myself settled, moved to the ski town, and just let loose that winter and just had so much fun. It was so awesome. So then April comes and, you know, I'm about to go seasonally unemployed and I'm not really prepared for it. In you know, my life, I've always kind of had a job. So I'm looking at it and just saying, gosh, I need a job for summer. Put on my headphones. Said, I'm going to walk around this little town till I find a job. And I made it 3 doorsteps up from our apartment. Some guy opened the door, hit me with it. I said, "What are you doing?" He said, "Oh, I'm moving this truck full of stuff into this. I'm going to open a dispensary tomorrow." And I said, "A dispensary, like one of the weed shops?" He said, "Yeah." Well, I said, "Man, I'll unload your truck for $100. And he goes, "Okay, fair deal." Unloaded his truck, got to know him that night. He said, "Man, you seem like a cool guy. You know a lot of people in town." I said, "Yeah, I know everybody." He said, "I'll see you tomorrow morning. You're hired. You can run my shop." And I said, "That's great. That's great." So there's really no more like falling into it than that. Honestly, back then it was glorified drug dealing. In all fairness, we were legal, but it wasn't a sought after industry. It wasn't cool yet. It was rickety at best. And I took the job because I was just in that mindset until I was already ski bumming it. I've always been a little adventurous. And I thought, what's a summer? Like, who cares? 3 months, I can make money, keep a roof over my head. I'll figure it out in the winter. And, 11 years later, I've just never left. I've never left.
I feel like, first of all, that's how most people end up in Telluride.
Right. Right. Yeah, totally agree. Then you know the town.
Yeah, right. They either end up there. It's like any ski town like that. Like, I'm in New Mexico, and in the northern part of the state, we have Red River and Angel Fire and Taos. And nobody ends up in those places unless they're going to ski or they're just on the flip of the wind, man. Just like, let's go try it out and see what happens. That's an epic story, man.
Yeah. Yeah. So, it worked out, and it's crazy because my first 5 years in the industry, I was late 20s, early 30s. I tried several times to leave. I call it drop out. I tried to drop out of the industry and it kept pulling me back.
Yeah.
I made it 4 interviews for a pharmaceutical sales job back in like 13, 14 for my buddy's company. They flew me out to LA for a 4th interview and I didn't get the job.
Wow.
So it was like, it was just always meant to be. And, you know, during those times, again, you know, seeing the cannabis industry now is like when Hollywood produces a movie about something. Like during the time of it happening, it wasn't so awesome and glorified and wonderful.
Right.
When you make a sweet film about it, it looks like the whole experience was rad.
Right.
So people are like, well, why did you want to leave? And I'm like, look, man, you know, back in 2010, 11, 12, even into 14, you were barely making enough money to live. You surely didn't have health benefits. A lot of the apartments, they wouldn't even let you lease a building if that, or a room if that's how you made your money. It was a struggle. It wasn't even cool. Like you didn't pick up chicks back then saying you're in the weed space.
Right.
People were like, so you're broke? And you're
Right.
like, yeah, you know, like that's so, you know, thankfully the industry didn't let me go. And then in 2015, I tried for 5 years working for other people, trying to find my own niche in the industry. And I found it in 2015 and haven't looked back since. And, you know, that's just part of becoming an entrepreneur. It's, you know, it's a game of attrition. It's not who's smart.
No.
I don't think intellect or smart has anything to do with it. It's attrition and work ethic. It's who can take the most lumps the longest.
Yes.
And then just a game of odds, you're bound to trip and fall on something,
Yes.
you know? And then if you can take that something and apply all those learning lessons from the past and accelerate it, then you're successful, you know?
Yeah, it's like I tell people all the time, to be an entrepreneur, number one, you better be passionate
Yep,
because that passion is fuel for something. You
yep.
may have something specific you're trying to build, or it may be a story like yours where you just kind of fall into it and stick with it. But
Yeah,
the biggest thing is you have to knock on the door every single day.
yeah,
And you can't, sometimes the energy is better than others. Sometimes, you know, we on this show we end up talking about mental health and depression quite a bit.
yeah,
And I'm one that deals with depression. And some days you can't get out of bed. You
yeah,
do the best you can to heal, but you have to get up the next day because you're the only one that's dependent on yourself. It's not like you're working for a boss that's going to give you paid time off or, you know, pay your salary. It's all about you and getting up and going and doing it. You're exactly right. If it's not for the faint of heart, it is not for the
yeah.
faint of heart.
You know, it really is. So let's unpack passion and even the anxiety, depression piece a little bit. You know, I mean, I tell people all the time, I'm a survivor of substance abuse. You
Yes.
know, it runs in my family. Um, I still drink a small amount of alcohol. I smoke plenty of weed. I haven't done any hard drugs, or I call them real drugs. And it'll be 5 years this summer,
Wow.
which, you know, yeah, I'm really pumped about. I haven't touched a prescription pill in probably over a decade, which I really struggled with in college.
Yeah.
What entrepreneurial and small business has done for me is it's my addiction, and it's the healthiest addiction I've ever had.
Yes.
You know, and I have a place to displace my energy, my passion, my drive, my emotions. You know, I mean, I'm up early, I work late. I'll talk to you till 8 o'clock tonight. I don't care. My wife's so used to it. She'll walk in and just go, "Oh, he's still just hustling."
Right.
Thankfully, yeah, you know, I met my wife 5 years ago when I first started my small business, and she had the grace to allow me to expand in that and stuck it out, and you know, that's how I really knew that she was the right one. But it's a great place for people that have a wild side that's kind of hard to tame, and they need wide fences and a lot of stuff to do. The faint of heart, you know, I mean, I look at people with full-time jobs and consistent paychecks, and I'm like, you're the luckiest person ever. And they'll look at me and be like, no, you are. And, you know, the grass is always greener. I personally love what I do, and I'll never give it up. And I really think I am luckier than some of those people, but I also understand stability.
Yes.
I'm just not built for stability. If I have too much stability, I'll go back into bad habits because I'll be bored, you know? So there's no better place for someone who has a lot of emotion and needs a constant place to pour that emotion into. Small business is where it's at.
Yeah, man, you and I are among the people cut from the same cloth.
Yeah.
The seasons in life that I've worked, I tell people all the time, I'm a terrible employee. Am I really a terrible employee? No, not really, because I'm a hard worker and I can get things done. I'm a terrible employee because I want to lead the way from a standpoint of, it really irritates me if I'm working for someone and they're not trying to find a better way, or they're not trying to grow things, or they're not trying to improve things. And I've had situations in life where I'm working for people that it's just status quo.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I can't sit still like that. It doesn't work for me. And kudos to the people that can. The
Sure.
big thing in life isn't either or. It's just finding your path. What is your
Yeah.
DNA? And live
Right.
where your DNA is. And that's why I think your story is amazing, because you're one of those people that have found that and you've been successful at it, but it didn't come easy. And I love those stories. I love the blood and the grit and the gore and the confusion and the hard knocks, because that's what makes it sustainable.
Yeah, yeah, and that's, it's totally true. And that's one thing folks have to watch, is when you're listening to a success story, is always go back
Yes.
first and look there, because we just have a tendency to heroize people. Take any super successful entrepreneur, and I'm not putting myself in the same realm as a Bezos or a Sam Walton or any of the tech guys. What I'm saying is, them as they stand today.
Yes.
Look 10 years into the back. I mean, Dyson, who made the really sweet vacuum, we have one of the Dysons at home, 5,200 prototypes over 10 years. He was broke. I mean, he was not cool those 10 years, and now his company, which is privately held, is worth, I mean, enormous sums. He does anything he wants. He was not cool for 10 years.
Right.
He spent 10 years being the polar opposite of cool,
Right.
as we know it.
Right.
So don't look at people as who they are. Always know it's who they've become, and there's a dragnet story behind them that's got all the good stuff. And that's what turns people away from really pursuing small businesses. The idea that you have today, there's no such thing as $1 million idea ever. There's
Yeah.
$1 million work ethic, because the idea you have today is not the product you're launching 3 years down the road.
Right.
When I started Mountain Made, in December 2012. We say 13, but it was Christmas of 2012. And my cousin, who's also a small business owner, at that time he was married, kids, debt-free, paid cash for a home, very successful. And I was a ski bum. I was broke. I couldn't afford college loans, but I was like finding my path. And we were sitting down at Christmas, and he gets teary-eyed and he said, "I got to ask you a question." I said, "What?" He goes, "I'm envious of you." I said, "Me?" He said, "Man, you're in your late 20s and you're fit." And I said, "Yeah, but that's about all I am." I'm fit, great. Pat myself on the back, look at you. And he goes, "But I'm not happy with myself." And I said, "Okay, how can I help?" He said, "Well, how are you staying so lean and athletic?" And I said, "Well, I moved out to this ski town and I'm broke, so I can't afford the gym. So I've just been tinkering around with workouts, like in my little 200 square foot room that I rent." And he's like, "Can you teach me your workouts?" I said, "Sure." So I got to the airport a couple of days later and pulled out my notebook, because at that time I was filling probably a notebook every 2 months with business ideas. I would write business plans just to walk through the practice. I would build logos just to walk through the practice. I would do stacks of these notebooks. So I just wrote down the words Mountain Made. It made sense in my head, Mountain Made. And I had the format in my head, but I wrote it down and structured it. And I made a deal. I said, I'll put these up on a computer. At that time, I had to go to the public library. I couldn't even afford my own computer. So I'd go down to a public library and use their computer. So I'd get on Google Drive, and I'd put 3 a week on Google Drive. And I said, "I'll commit to this until you stop doing them." And most people, I'll give you about 2 weeks doing it. 16 weeks later, he was 40 pounds lighter.
Wow.
And yeah, And to this day, 7 years later, he's kept the weight off. He's way more active with his girls. They're both super athletic. He's gotten his life back.
Yes.
That was Mountain Made 2013.
Yeah.
I still have never pulled a penny out of the company. It's been 7 years.
Wow.
Right? So I took that and I got friends and family in shape for several years, dreamed of coaching fitness classes, fell into that, similar to how I fell into weed, coached group fitness classes at several spots in Denver for 2 years, made a name for the brand, kind of figured out the brand, paused for a year as I was going through some transitions and reforming my cannabis business. And then it just made perfect sense to create CBD supplements for activated lifestyles, because I've been a huge advocate of using cannabis before fitness, pre-workout.
Okay.
So it was an awesome tie-in. And now we're growing the brand to support other people's activated lifestyles. But the point is what I thought Mountain Made was 7 years ago is not what it's turning into.
Yes.
And it took 7 years to flesh that out before we really found like the way to allow Mountain Made, the brand, to impact the greatest amount of people.
Yeah, I was having a conversation earlier today, and the thought hit me. It came out as a statement. Growth is not a sharp turn. Growth is a long evolution of knowledge and awareness and relationships, but it's never a sharp turn. And I think people get that confused. I think people oftentimes get impatient because they want growth to be a sharp turn. I'm going to get there quick, and all of us do it. I'm sure when you were broke, it was like, man, I just want something to happen quick, so I can have some money, and it's the same. But we have to have that patience and that understanding that growth is a slow evolutionary process built of all of these elements of experiences and relationships and knowledge and awareness. And that's exactly what you're saying, is that it's a slope that takes us somewhere that actually provides more value than if we would have made a quick, sharp turn somewhere and ended up at a place that didn't mean as much.
Yeah, totally. I just wrote that down. That's wonderful. It's because it really is. I mean, it's difficult. And that's why, I knew for a fact I was going into these incubator classes. I joined twice. It was like 6 weeks, and they paired you with a successful entrepreneur, and you had to create a business plan. Then you had to pitch it. I wasn't interested in doing any of those businesses. I just wanted the practice.
Right.
And I just wanted to, and that was in 2012, 13. My actual real business started in 2015. I had years of dedicated time just being around successful people. I've always kind of worked for small businesses too. So even if you go back there, I got my first job at 15.
Yeah.
So it was 13 years of shadowing small business owners. So if people have an itch to try and do their own business, it's not like an all-in thing. If you have a full-time job, God bless your heart, keep the job.
Yes.
You hear about these entrepreneurs, and they left everything. Well, let me tell you something. They did after 8 years of fleshing it out.
Yes.
When it made sense. I've taken risks and left jobs because I thought the next thing on a whim, and then you learn, hey, you're bipolar and you make, bad decisions. And it wasn't actually a good decision. It was something in your head told you, but those were mistakes. I should have never done that. I should have kept a job like Mountain Made right now. I have a full-time cannabis wholesale firm that I run that keeps a roof over my wife and I's head. It's successful. We do great. I can take my time with Mountain Made now. Mountain Made does not have to pay my mortgage. So once Mountain Made is successful and we're pulling revenue, I'm going to go start the third business. And once that's up and running, I'm going to go start the fourth, the fifth, the sixth. My goal is in my 40s, a year and a half away, I want to start to accelerate more and more and more small businesses till I drive myself nuts by 50. And then I want to retire, and I want to consult, and I want to oversee other people who are like myself and help them step through that process too. But, that's a 12-year plan. But absolutely, man, that I wish someone would have put that in front of me. Growth is not a sharp turn, because I've made some sharp turns. And a lot of those came from, you know, mental illness.
Yes.
But my mental illness is also what makes me a good entrepreneur, right? So I found a fit for that. I stopped the medication, which is not for everyone, but I learned to draw that and had a place for it. And again, entrepreneurship, small business has been such a blessing to me, because it's literally my lifestyle. I needed a consistent lifestyle, and the way I found it was through small business. I do this every single minute of the day that I'm up. I'm
Right.
functioning at work. So, it's just such a solid opportunity for people. If it's meant for you, it's 100% meant for you, and you'll get there, but just let the process go.
I will tell you, I came to that statement through similar experiences as you, that, when you're saying I had, full-time jobs, great jobs, whatever, left them on a whim, been there, um, turned down things that I probably should have taken. And I think people that have this, we call it being an entrepreneur. I just call it DNA, like I mentioned before. People that have that DNA, really we're almost counterculture. And Gary Vaynerchuk, you hear him say this constantly. Um, this whole being an entrepreneur isn't fabulous, and you described your story in great detail, and that is this it's become this mythological flaming dragon or unicorn that everyone thinks is awesome, and it is awesome if it's your DNA. If it's not, it can be incredibly damaging, just like for someone that needs to be an entrepreneur, that needs to decide how to use their time, going to an 8 to 5. I could never be a banker, ever. That would be the most boring job to me,
Yeah.
because it just doesn't feed my soul at the level I want to be fed. And so you're exactly right, man. It's a beautiful thing if it's your path in life.
Yeah.
And that's where the magic happens. Is I tell people, young people all the time, use your late teens to mid 20s to find that path, to feed those passions. And then you have time to exercise on that in your late 20s. But man, we rush people. We set these self expectations that are so high that it's a setup for failure.
Yeah, it is. And also, I also listen to Gary Vee, and I would like to expand on that, because he makes a great point when he talks about, the fake it till you make it. And how many folks on social media, we had a guy in the beginning when we started Mountain Made, and he wanted to be an influencer, and the one partner who's no longer with the company was just talking him up, and he was this, that, and the other. And I put up his Instagram page, and I was like, it looks really fake. Nah, man, look, he's so successful. He has a helicopter and all this stuff. Well, he sent us his address. He wanted some samples sent out. I Googled his address. It was a run-of-the-mill apartment in Chicago. Totally fake. Totally fake.
Yeah.
And it's in a similar vein, I would blow people's minds. So at our peak, my cannabis wholesale firm, we had 15 employees. We dissolved the partnership in 2018, and I do it independently now. I want to scale Mountain Made more than I want to rescale the wholesale firm.
Right.
So I still held several clients, but its peak, it was a monster. So we would interview people all the time, a lot of sales roles, and I'd get these guys, they'd sit down, guys and gals, they'd sit down in suits and ties, and they had an incredible sales background. And, everyone's going to come into the cannabis space and just redo it and make it their own, and it just rarely happens. And I'd show up in interviews pretty much like I am now, because that was my thing, is I put in the work to own the business. I can come and dress any way I want. I'm a t-shirt and jeans kind of guy, and that's how I like to roll.
Yes.
So we'd be sitting there, they'd be in their nice clothes. I'd look like this. And I'd say this in every interview to make a point. I say, isn't it funny? A guy or gal like you trying to get in, and a guy like me trying to get the heck out. And they'd stop. And they said, what do you mean? I said, this is technically not my industry, but our industry. People like me, this is our industry. You're trying to get in, and we're all trying to get out. And you know why? because it's not cool. It's a hustle. It's a pain in the butt. It's going to take everything out of you. You're going to have to love it. You're going to have to hate it. It's not what you think it is.
Yeah.
And it would really stop the interviews. And I'd say, I'm gonna save you today. Go home. I'm not going to hire you today. I need you to go home. I'm not even a second interview for a week. I need you to truly think if you're ready to throw away your 401k, your health benefits, your relationship with your family, your ability to refinance your home because now you're making drug money, all these things you haven't thought of because you think it's cool and it's going to look cutesy-tootsy on your Instagram, and I'm going to protect your ability to make a living. Don't do this.
Right.
And they'd be like, wow, you're saying that? And I'd be like, I smoked weed before this interview. I'm going to smoke weed after. I love weed. So I'm willing to take the bumps and bruises because I love what I do, but it's not magical. It's not a unicorn. And people see entrepreneurism just like that.
Yes.
I want to retire. You can have all the small businesses you want. Take them.
Yeah.
I'm out. I don't think it's cool. If you look at my LinkedIn, I have nothing about cannabis in my title. You can't even see it unless you read about me. You look at all the Johnny-come-latelys and it's CEO cannabis that, CEO hemp this, blah, blah. They're 6 months in the game.
Yeah.
Like, if you do it to try and be cool, just be fake and be fake cool. But if you love it, you got to be ready to earn it. And I love that you brought that up because Gary Vee is so right. There's no such thing as fake it till you make it. There's no such thing as a plug and play entrepreneur, small business. It's work.
Yes. Yes.
The weed industry, cannabis, is a lot of work. I have to smoke weed to stay patient with the weed industry because it's insane.
That's the statement of the show. I promise you. I have to smoke weed to stay
we were
patient.
looking for, right? Like, and I just want to be clear about that because I would say that all the time. The other thing I would do in interviews too, we'd interview for different positions, and I'd have my business card sitting next to me. I was the COO, I was the co-founder, I was a co-owner, and we were making a ton of money, and everybody in the industry knew it. And we'd sit there, and I'd say, they'd say, well, what's upward mobility in this company? And I'd slide them my business card, and I'd say, there, that's you, man. You get to be that today if that's what you want. I don't want it. What do you mean you don't want it? I said, man, I don't like being on the top because I'm bored and I want more to do. I want to take the company's money and start 10 other projects and have to start from the bottom and be the guy that's got to show up and unlock the doors and watch something else grow. This is successful. This is not easy now, but it's chunk. All we got to do is give the thing an oil change every month and we're bound to, here, if you want to be cool guy, CEO, COO, you be that. I'd rather be Johnny Nobody that's got to show up tomorrow and clean the toilets on the new project. And that would also blow people's minds in an interview. I don't. Man, I want to start the new thing. Boots on the ground, fresh. Dig the first hole in the trench. That's where I like to be.
It's the difference between being in a position of creating and building versus maintaining.
Yep.
And it's the difference between a leader and a manager.
Yep.
And again, we're going to circle back to what we keep saying. It's DNA. Some people just want to be managers. Some people want the turnkey system and they want to walk in and they just want to maintain. And some people are the leaders that say, nope, we got to strip it down. We can do it better. We can do something else. And those are two very, very, very different mindsets. And by the way, I want to tell people, we need both of those in the world.
Totally, 100%.
We need those. It's again, it's not an either or. It's a find your path, and that's the word that kept coming to my mind when you were talking, Mike, was authenticity. And I have to attest, your LinkedIn does not. It's exactly how you said it was. It doesn't mention what industry you're in. It just mentions that you're a leader, a CEO, and you create companies. And I think knowing your field, knowing your atmosphere, that's what needs to be said in the LinkedIn atmosphere. And that's just being authentic. And
and I totally agree. I'm going to walk out to the faux greenhouse while my dogs bark at the delivery guy there so we don't interrupt. This is a great interview.
Awesome.
But no, I totally agree. And that's probably what small business does for you most is it takes your pride and it just throws it in the garbage.
Yes.
And it's like, look, if you want to do this or be this, you be yourself. I tell people all the time, here's a quote for you is I went to college. I barely graduated. I got a job out of college and it was wonderful. It was a very incredible family. It was a Christian-based organization. They put us through some Christian-based leadership. That wasn't exactly up my alley, but I took from it so much. They ran an incredible company. I moved out to Telluride, Colorado, total 180, learned more about myself post-college, fell in love with the mountains in Colorado, and then I did the greatest thing in the world, and I merged the two.
Yes.
And the cannabis space gave me an opportunity, here it is, to be professional at being myself.
Yes. Yep. Yes.
I'm professional at being myself. I wake up, I'm Mike Pachan. I go to work, I'm Mike Pachan. I come home, I'm Mike Pachan. I don't pull the Clark Kent routine where I wake up and I go to work and I'm something different and I come home and I'm back to being me. And again, if certain people do that and that's their fit, that's great. For me, it doesn't fit. I have an opportunity to be professional at being myself. And I think small business owners and high-level leaders all have that. And that's what makes them great rather than good, is they're able to, it's a lifestyle. There's no on off. It's just on.
It's this idea that nothing is separate, right? And
Yep.
and it's easier to live life with nothing compartmentalized than constantly having to compartmentalize.
Yep.
And that's what I love about, you mentioned that lifestyle identity, that I love that saying, be professional at being myself. That's it. That encompasses the whole idea.
Yeah.
Well, I
But
want to go
to
back.
your point, every small business owner needs a team of people. And inside that team, we needed people that showed up and just wanted to be there 9 to 5 and work their tails off and fell in love with the company. And we gave them insurance benefits. We paid them pretty well. So, that's the balance. That's the yin to the yang. Is the leader and entrepreneur, you need to be, all over the place, and you need some stability and pillars. And that's where the matching comes together so well and can be so strong. And then there's opportunities for everybody.
Yes.
So I agree. I mean, you need all aspects to make a solid company run, or else it just gets out of balance.
Yeah, it is. It's that knowing your weaknesses and shortcomings and surrounding yourself with people that are excellent in those areas.
Totally.
And love
and
those
dedicated
areas.
to what they do as well. And man, I love seeing dedicated employees and team members. It makes my day. And again, I like to kind of, I say things that might not make sense on the surface, but, there's a part of, me that has, not jealous, because that's not a good word, but envious of people who, are happy with the 9 to 5 or the 8 to 5,
Right.
because again, I mean, my brain can't turn off. I envy people that can take a day off. I'm like, man, what's that like? That must be great. I'll walk around I have 2-acre property. I'll walk around the dang on property for an hour and a half just because I don't know how to sit still. I'm doing nothing. That's not healthy.
Right.
It's better than going sit and face down at the bar like I used to.
Yeah.
But, that's why I have a big property is, this weekend I hand split all my own wood every winter. We have central heat, but I like to run the fireplaces.
Mm-hmm.
I hand split all my own wood just to give myself something to do.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
That's not healthy in itself. So I have this bit of envy to people that are like, I shut down and just kick my feet up and watch football. And I'm like, God, that must be awesome.
Yeah, it's like, hey, well, we're off at 5. We're going to get a beer, or we're going to go watch the game. And I'm like, okay, I'll watch the game, but I'm going to be doing something else simultaneously.
Right.
It's that was me last night. Actually, it was watching the game, yes, but my iPad and my computer and working through stuff and rebuilding a website. Totally. And it's the same. It's your brain just never stops, and it isn't. That could also be the edge of insanity, to be totally honest.
Oh yeah. Yeah. But again, that's just, we're driving the point home of, if it's meant for you, man, chase it down, do it. If it's not, that's okay too. There's a place in the ecosystem for everyone.
Yes.
There's a place for people to support the entrepreneur. There's so many cool, I love business. Business as an ecosystem is so wonderful. It's a shame that, wealth and success in business can be demonized. It's interesting. Business is a creative form, just like art, but it has a, when you say the words art and business and compare them, it has a different rap. There's a lot of creativity in the business world. Business is an ecosystem. It's a living, breathing being entity. And I've just really fallen in love with business, just as a word and an environment and an ecosystem. I think it's so cool.
Yeah. I want to come back to two things. First of all, I want to come back to, you kind of painted this picture for us of the transitional years of the CBD, the weed industry, kind of going from this dirty word, I mean, how many times have all of us heard that marijuana is a gateway drug? People were literally, for decades, were taught that in school, say no to drugs, especially marijuana, because it'll lead you to do everything else. And so we kind of transitioned from that to, then it just became a dirty word. You're looking late 90s, early 2000s. It's like, the more Snoop Dogg and Tupac rapped about it, the more it kind of became, ooh, maybe it's still a dirty word to most people, but not so much to some. And then, early 2000s, things kind of shifted. And you've kind of been inside, behind the veil of the business side of it, of having a shop, working at a shop when it was still, kind of on the down low at best, to now, I mean, gosh, there are pharmaceutical companies and cannabis farmers that, you follow stuff on the stock market, and cannabis companies are some of the strongest, most viable companies right now. What was that transition like, from the standpoint of how people dealt with it, from the perception of the public? And what was that transition like? And what was your learning curve on going, okay, this is no longer as dirty of a word? There had to have been a pivot there, going from kind of being, oh, we can't let them know we work for a cannabis shop, to now able to be open and public about it. What was all of that? There had to be some interesting things taking place.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And it sure was. So I got the job, and I didn't tell my parents what I was doing for, man, it was 6 to 8 months. They actually came out to Telluride to visit that summer. And I was telling them I was lawn and landscaping, but I couldn't point to any jobs I had done. And, my mom assumed I was selling drugs, so it's semi-accurate. And, I came home that Christmas, and it was Christmas Day breakfast, and my mom just threw her silverware down and was like, tell me what you're doing out there. I went on like this 2-hour conversation about cannabis, and we're helping people, and I've noticed this, that, and the other. And by the end, they were like, is this what you want to do? And I was like, I don't know. For right now, it's what I'm doing. But yeah, so first of all, present day as it sits, if you walked into any dispensary in Colorado, anywhere, regardless of the area, town it was in, the look of the building, anything, and you sat there for an 8-hour day, and you wrote down 3 demographics that you're going to see walk through that door, it might be 5% of the people that walk through that door. I bet you're 95% wrong on most of that. It's incredible who walks through those doors nowadays.
Yeah.
When we first started, we were medical only in Telluride, so you had to be a Colorado resident with a what we called red card, and that was issued by a doctor. But at that time, our door was literally just wide open. You couldn't see in the back, but we would get a ton of tourists in. Well, their thing back then, they would walk into the front lobby and they'd talk to us about it, but they weren't interested. And so, why in here? We just wanted to see it. Well, you came in because you had an interest. Well, no. The amount of people, those people that now use cannabis, man, it's got to be super high.
Yeah.
We were breaking down the barriers. You know, there were closet cannabis users that didn't want to admit to it because of the social or economical impact of it. It's grown dramatically, you know, and that's why in these interviews I'll switch from saying weed to cannabis. You know, it's softer to say cannabis, but you know, it's like fun because it's still weed to a lot of us.
Right.
You know, that took
Right.
some high risk situations before all this was legal. You know, it's weed, like it's fun. We sell weed, but it's cannabis, and the more people have seen it is that. But you know, the everyday, and that's the thing, is the most people that come into a dispensary are scheduled users of cannabis. They use it every night or every morning or every afternoon or all dang on day. It's rare that you see someone come in and they say, oh yeah, I just use this occasionally. Once you're using cannabis and you see its potential, you're in. You're in the club, and you're using it consistently, even if it's just every evening. Now I have the luxury, I wake up, smoke weed in the morning, and work out before work, and it's fantastic. You know, I can function all day smoking weed. It doesn't really bother me. A lot of people like smoking in the evenings, but dramatic increase in normalization. So then we went from dispensaries, medical dispensaries, to rec, and you really saw an influx of people and tourists, but they wouldn't come in to just look, they'd come in to buy. Because now it's not just stigmatized. Well, I don't know if I have a medical reason, but I'm interested.
Right.
And here's an important thinking point. There's no difference between recreational and medical cannabis at all whatsoever. Impossible to have a difference, right? So for the listeners, if Mitch and I go out to dinner and we both order a spinach salad, and I order spinach because I like salad dressing, and Mitch orders a spinach salad because he knows how healthy spinach is, I don't get any less health benefit because I don't know about the health benefits.
Right.
There's
Right.
no
Right.
such thing as a recreational cannabis user at all. We're all medical cannabis users. Even if you smoke cannabis to get high, you're using cannabis to displace yourself mentally, which in itself is a medical benefit of recreational use. There's no difference. It's an impossibility. Those words shouldn't even be used. It should just be called cannabis. Is this a rec dispensary? It's just a dispensary. It's just a dispensary. Now, so in 2014, I led a crew that helped 15 children manage epilepsy through raw oils. Very crude extraction methods were used, clean but crude, to nowadays, studies in Israel. Back then, we couldn't even do blood draws on the kids to measure their cannabinoid levels because you couldn't find a doctor crazy enough to get themselves involved in that process. They would have lost their DEA license, their license to practice. Nowadays, you're seeing integration into big pharma.
Yeah.
You know,
right.
When I first started in Telluride back in 2010, I would take my hands and hand grind the weed down, take 2 zigzags out of a pack, lick them, stick them together, roll giant Sharpie joints, hand them to you, and sell you for $10. And there was nothing in our health codes or, nothing in the rules and regs to say I couldn't do that.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
It was totally legal. That would be the equivalent of a waiter or waitress licking your straw and putting it in your drink. You'd be like, what are you doing?
Right.
And now we're doing microbial, pesticide, heavy metal, residual solvent, potency testing before you can move any product into the open markets.
Wow.
The gaps and differences in 11 years is just absolutely incredible.
The only thing, I was talking to someone about this the other day, the only thing I can compare the growth and like you said, the closing of the gap in the cannabis industry is technology.
Yep.
Those are really the only two things that have grown at such lightning speed in such a short amount of time. I mean, you just take something as small as someone who liked to smoke weed on the weekends but had to go to a job. If they got tested on Monday morning, they feared for everything,
Right.
because it was in the category of every other drug for the most part. And
Yeah.
to see where things have shifted, the only other thing I can compare it to is technology. 10, 11, 12 years ago, if you could text message, you could only text message within carrier on a T9 flip phone.
Yeah.
And
Had one.
now we're carrying, you're doing a podcast on your phone because it's what you have right now. Like, it's
Right.
incredible when you
Yeah.
think about it. And those
Yeah.
two industries, there's not another industry that can compare to the growth of those two industries.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I mean, it's pretty incredible, how much tax revenue that we bring in. And, not to make light of our current situation, but man, it cracked us all up to be considered essential. Like, I don't know if you guys know this, but Denver technically had prohibition for 2 hours.
Yeah.
They shut us down for 2 hours, and the mayor's phone, Twitter, email, social media blew up, and they retracted it within 2 hours because they're like, all right, we'll leave it be. I mean, to be considered essential during a global, pandemic, and 11 years ago, my friends and family were like, come on, man, you need to get a real job. You're almost 30. You need to grow up.
Yeah.
I'm sitting in a nice house on 2 acres is an essential industry.
Yeah.
So, again, that's that passion piece. I was not cool 11 years ago doing this. It was cool on the inside in the industry. Man, we were coolest cats around. We thought we were top dogs,
Right.
But from outsiders looking in, man, we were glorified drug dealers. We need to get alive.
Yeah.
So even just the perception there and the ability for people to stop in. So you really started to see it around 13, 14. A lot of older folks would come in with their kids and they'd be like, look, my mom or dad does not want to be here. And I'd always lighten up the situation. I'd say the same thing every time. I said, shit, I don't want to be here either. It's work. Like,
Right.
let's leave and go hang out. Like, let's do something fun, because I was working it behind the counter, helping dispensaries kind of grow their teams and their businesses and manage customers. And you would see it slowly.
Yeah.
And you'd say, look, ma'am, sir, we're not here to get you high. We're going to start you small. We were talking about micro dosing way back in the day, 2.5 milligrams, and helping it. And then they would get comfortable with it. And you see in 3-4 weeks later, hey, Johnny, Susie, how you doing? Great. Yeah. Yeah. You know what I'm doing now, Mike? What? I'm eating those gummies during the day because I think it makes me feel fun. You're like, what? Oh, yeah. You know what? I sneak a half or a quarter piece during the day and I go to, bridge or knitting class and, man, I just giggle the whole time. And you're like, that's incredible.
Yeah.
So you saw people sort of self-evolve and normalize themselves. We weren't even pushing it.
Right.
I got a great story where I was doing some brand ambassador work for an infused joint, getting them off the ground. And this older gal walked in, probably in her 60s. And I said, hey, we have, joints on sale today. It's a special. And she goes, oh, no, I only smoke concentrates. And I was like, word? She's like, oh, yeah, I'm the coolest lady at the retirement park. Like, I hang out and smoke dabs all day. And I'm like, that's so cool. But she self-evolved. She let herself get into it, found her own products and her pathway. And then you just see people get into it and it makes you feel good. And, I would always start conversations off and say, I've seen cannabis and hemp fails many times as I've seen it work.
Right.
Bottom line. It's not for everyone. But when it is for people, man, they just love it. They just love it.
Yeah. So talking about product, I kind of want to go through this a little bit. And for those listening to the show, in the show notes on YouTube, we'll have a link to Mike's website, mountainmade.life. And it's got really three main products right now: build, boost, and recover.
Yeah.
Coming soon, you've got the dogs product. And so since you kind of alluded to a little bit of the, the microdosing, different strands, et cetera, et cetera. And I don't want to get so deep into this that people can't follow.
Yeah.
But your website, really, really well done, man. Whoever built that
Thank
for you. Easy to read, easy to shop, easy to look at. I have to say, I learned something. Not that I know a ton about CBD and cannabis, but I did learn something. I had no idea that a build type product. So for those listening, we're talking about for athletes, for people, going to the gym, building. I had no idea that existed, man. I had kind of heard of the other two before, recovery, especially. I think a lot of people, you're talking about people that have arthritis, people that have
Yeah.
epilepsy. We've kind of, those stories have kind of been publicized. I've heard of athletes taking recovery type CBD for exactly that, after they play, after they work out, nursing an injury. But the whole idea of a build, that really piqued my curiosity. I was like, wow. So give us some little thoughts about the three products you have, about what's coming. And that way people, let's give everyone a little teaser. How about that? That way we can push them over to your site.
Yeah, that's great. So first and foremost, most of what people know about CBD is false. It's poor information. It's from people. So here's what, first of all, CBD is best in a high dose, and science is proving that. Science is saying up to 600 milligrams is where you're going to find your therapeutic value daily. 1,500 milligrams is your peak. After that, you may create some toxicity. THC, you can achieve therapy in small doses because the therapy that most people are shooting for with THC has to do with euphoria. You can eat 2.5 milligrams of THC and it will get you high, which is euphoria. I've watched a lot of pain patients struggle and have to updose on THC. And even people that are trying to fight tumors with THC, you're taking 1,000 milligrams a day for 90 days to decrease your tumor.
Wow.
THC gets a rap for being able to be used in small doses because if you use it in high doses, you get super euphoric, and sometimes people can't handle that. Cannabinoids are meant for high dose. That's fallacy number one. So these products that are telling you to take 2, 5, 10 milligrams a day of CBD are selling you snake oil. Bottom line, snake oil. Our 50 milligram build tablet is for that. It's for you to build a baseline in your body and titrate up throughout the day. Fallacy number two is CBD is a molecule, standalone molecule, is not sedative at all. In fact, we're going to release some brain mapping in the next couple of weeks, and we're going to prove that CBD spikes brain and creative and cognitive activity. That's why we promote build in the morning, 1 to 2 tablets with caffeine, and you're going to feel plugged in. You're going to be feeding your brain the right food to create beta waves, not theta waves, and you're going to get a boost of mental energy. What makes CBD sedative is all these oils on the market, and the other terpenes and other cannabinoids are sedative. We're just running CBD right now, and CBD standalone does work because work for the general population is not super specific. If you have a severe ailment, the reason you use full spectrum oil is because you don't know what in cannabis is actually working for that.
Ah, gotcha. More generalized.
When people have cancer and they say, I'm going to take Rick Simpson oil, first of all, they don't know what they're talking about because all it is raw oil. It's not that Rick Simpson did anything except extract raw oil. Right. Every time you extract that oil, the profile of cannabinoids is different. So if you buy raw oil off me and raw oil off some other dude down the street, his might cure your tumor, mine might not, because there's 1 or 2 things that mine didn't have that his have. And we don't know what those 1 or 2 things are.
Wow.
So there's no miracle to full spectrum oil. You're just shotgun approaching. It might work today. It may not work tomorrow. It'll work this batch. It may not work the next batch. So the reason that we use CBD isolate or standalone CBD is because then our customers know what they're going to get every single time. We're working on introducing other pieces of the puzzle, but strategically and consistently. So we'll save that conversation for another day.
Yes, yes.
The other reason, fallacy number 3, is tincture, which is the oil droplets, are garbage and should have never hit the market to begin with. They're garbage. And let me tell you why.
Please.
If you don't hold that oil under your tongue for a full 45 seconds, you're going to get less than 6% of that dose. Let's go back and talk about high dose again. Tinctures at most have 3,000 milligrams in the bottle. You get 36 droppers. Let's make the math easy. Let's say you get 30 droppers. That's 100 milligrams a bottle or dropper. But if you only get 6% of the dose, you're only getting 6 milligrams. You bought snake oil. It does nothing for you.
Huh.
Show me by a show of hands how many people would hold oil under their tongue for 45 seconds. Not many hands are going to go up.
Yeah. Yeah.
So why is tincture on the market and why is it so popular? Great question. Have you ever made a batch of, I won't say brownies because that's too weed relevant. Let's say cake. A cake.
Too weed
Okay?
relevant. I love
Yeah,
that.
a cake, right? A cake takes 2 tablespoons of oil, tops. If you put in 4, the cake would never form because it'd be too oily.
Right.
There's nothing if you get too much oil in any recipe, whether it's spaghetti sauce or cakes or brownies or anything, it doesn't form up into anything.
Right.
When we first extracted hemp, we didn't have the technology to pull the THC out. So if the legal threshold is 0.3%, and that's in the plant, and you extract it, you've concentrated that. Now your THC levels go up to 3, 4, 5%. We just made 55 gallons of hemp oil, and it's over the legal threshold. So it's not hemp anymore, it's cannabis. And because you can't have a cannabis and a hemp license at the same time, you're now a felon. You now have 55 gallons of illegal oil. First thing we did was pour other oils into that to dilute it. Here's all your grapeseed oil. Here's all your hemp oil. Here's all your coconut oil. Now to take that 3% back down to 0.3%. Now you have legal hemp oil again, okay? Go back to the cake example. What the heck product can you build with a ton of oil? Tincture. That's it. The only end product you can build with a ton of oil is tincture. That's why tinctures roll out, is because we didn't have the extraction capabilities to create distillate and isolate. Distillate and isolate, you can make all kinds of products with. We were unable to do that at a commercial scale. Tincture was literally the only product you could make. The consumer sees that, self-educates by what they see, not what they know, and they go, oh, CBD oil comes in a bottle, it works. It doesn't work. You're buying snake oil.
Yeah.
And the industry knows that. That's why Mount Made will never launch a tincture ever, ever, ever.
Right.
Tinctures were the only product in 2010, 11, and 12 that we could really make in the cannabis space because our oils were so raw. We hadn't learned to distill them and refine them. Tinctures fell off right around 2011 and 12 because we learned how to refine them better, and you got your gummies, your brownies, your vape pens. No one's ever put a tincture back on a cannabis shelf before. There's like 2 brands that do it these days, and they make no money.
Right.
They make no money.
Right.
So people have to realize just because you see it on a shelf doesn't mean it's a good product. I get really passionate when I talk about tinctures because it's such a snake oil.
Yeah.
It just is it's unfortunate there was so much money spent on tinctures and so little value given to the person who spent that hard-earned money. It's super unfortunate. That's why we do tablets. That's why we do high-dose tablets. And that's why we don't jump into the broad spectrum, full spectrum marketing game. We have a consistent product that delivers to your body quickly, and it works. It's simple. It's CBD isolate in a tablet. It's simple.
Yeah. So tying into that, your build product is a 50 milligram tablet. Your boost is a 10 milligram chewable.
Yep.
And then your recovery is a 25 milligram chewable, just to give people an idea. So I want to also, on your website, you've got this in big pink kind of, make sure you read this. And I want to get to this because for some of our listeners, this will be very important. You have a big disclaimer, 0 THC.
Yeah.
So if someone's never dealt, say someone has heard this conversation, they really find you intriguing. They're like, I at least want to check out the website. I know nothing about all what this guy's talking about. Explain what 0 THC, why is that important and valuable to a shopper on your site?
Yeah, absolutely. So I cannot make a full claim, but what I can tell you is it lowers the probability of ever failing a drug test. Our CBD is 99.9% pure CBD. We can test that and show that. That's our input. So that 0.1% is made up of all kinds of stuff, potentially super small slivers of THC. Right. Our lab tests to 0.0016 milligrams per gram. So we send in a gram of isolate, and they're saying we can tell you for a fact that for every gram of CBD, there's less than 0.0016 grams of THC. So essentially zero. And you would have to eat so many of our tablets to have any measurable THC in your system. We can say zero THC.
So for the totally ignorant person, the difference in CBD THC, explain that really quickly.
Yeah, so they both create a sense of euphoria. THC creates euphoria through a psychotropic effect or being high, right? When I'm high, I love being high. Sometimes I get a little paranoid, you just ride it out, right? That's the mind change, is the psychotropic effect. CBD creates a euphoria because it decreases anxiety, increases cognition. So you're euphoric because you just feel better, right?
But not the high that people relate
CBD
to.
is non-psychoactive.
Yeah.
So you don't get high, but you can create euphoria because you might just feel better because you're calmer, you're thinking straighter, you're more productive. So, a lot of our customers still get drug tested. So we don't want any THC in our products. Now, we may launch an independent product of like THC AV or Delta 8 THC or some really exotic cannabinoids down the road. We'll let people know about them and they'll know exactly what they're buying. But it's very important to our customers to not have THC because, a lot of folks still cannot have THC in their bodies at all.
Right. Well, then someone may want to use the benefits of CBD without the T. So sometimes that's also let's call that a cultural or conscientious, can't even say the word, decision. Someone may want the benefits of that CBD side, but not want the high per se.
Right.
And that's something that your company is someone that could offer them help in that area. So
Now let's ask the hard question. Hey, Mike, doesn't CBD work best or better with THC? And I'll say, yes, you're absolutely right. But here's a counter question. Can you tell me in what instances that's an accurate statement? Crickets.
Right. Which is part of the diatribe that you went on earlier that kind of alluded to all of that. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Is epilepsy best served with a combination of THC and CBD? For years, we said yes. I was just on the phone with a buddy of mine who's saying now it's not THC as we know it, which we count as Delta 9 THC. They're now saying it's super light elements of THCV that actually help with the epilepsy. So when we're selling these kids this oil with their parent and doctor consent, mind you, again, it was a shotgun approach. We didn't know what tiny element was helping with epilepsy. Why did kids go back into epileptic fits sometimes and not others? Maybe it was 1,000th of a milligram of THCAV that we didn't even know about at the time. Right. So people making these ridiculous claims like full spectrum oil cured everything. You have no idea. Yeah. You have no idea. And until you can point some science in that direction, you're selling people snake oil. Even if their product cured someone's tumor, to me, it's still technically snake oil because they cannot point at what did that. And if you can't, don't point your finger. Be excited about it, but don't market it like you have some cure from God and you don't understand it and you're trying to rake people over the coals for another $70. Like, it's just not fair. It's not fair to the consumer.
That's a practice they've learned from Big Pharma.
Totally.
It's we see it every day in TV commercials. I just saw one earlier, actually last night, watching that football game. The commercial was an antidepressant that in the disclaimer said, this may cause you to become more depressed.
Right.
And
Right.
that's the principle you're talking about. They don't
Totally.
even know. They don't even know.
Right. Right. So if they don't know, then some dude named Mike that sells weed for a living, he don't know either. And I
Yeah.
would tell all my customers in the dispensary, I don't know. I'm not here to cure your problem. I'm a guide along your cannabis journey. I'm your consultant, right? Because all a consultant does, a consultant shows up to a production facility and they don't have the frazzledness of the business going under or the machine being broke. They're a set of eyes that's calm, cool, and collected, and they go, "Did you tighten that bolt?" And you're like,
Right.
"Ah,
Right.
here's your 10 grand. Get out of here." All I am for people in cannabis is a calm, cool, collected mind that's able to go, "Did you ask these hard questions?
Yeah.
You were fed a bunch of bull. Did you look here, here, and here? You don't have to buy my product.
Right.
That's totally fine. I just don't want you to buy unfair products. Don't waste money. You know, if you're into Mount Made, cool. If you have any more questions, email me. I'll email you back. But at the end of the day, I don't like seeing people taken advantage of from those newbies that I was talking about who don't even know, and they're making ridiculous statements about, right? I've looked into the eyes of parents, of elderly people passing away, of children with epilepsy, of someone's wife of 10 years who's in stage 3 MS, of Parkinson patients, of pain patients that are talking about taking their own lives because they can't stop the pain. I've looked into those people's eyes and I've tried to help them. Some of them I have, some of them I have not been able to help. I get tired of this newbie garbage
Yeah.
that I hear. Go put in the work and
Right.
help your community first and then try and get rich. Like, I've put in the work. I'm trying to sell people a decent product at a decent price. Go do your own homework. Right? I think we have a
Yeah.
great product, but I won't even say that. I'll call it decent just to be fair.
Right. And it goes back to that authenticity, right? That idea that there's a sacredness to being authentic, and the sacredness is putting in the work. The sacredness is honor and dignity, and no matter what the genre or the business or the product is, all of those are the elements that build that authenticity. And that
Totally.
I've known you for a couple hours, but looking at your work and your experience and hearing your story, I think if anything exudes from you outside of knowledge, because it's obvious, and you're rapping to us about stuff, and I'm sure half the people are like, okay, I'm gonna have to listen to this episode again. But I love that. I love that we can provide value with authenticity to people that
Totally.
and I do want to say, I want to bring up, I want to circle back to one more thing before we start rounding out the show.
Yeah. And real, I just want to
But
touch on our, after you, I want to touch on our product line too, because I went on a tangent, but I'll let people know more about Build, Boost, Recover, Dog, and then what to expect over the next 3 months from Mount Made.
let's close out the show with that, if that's cool.
Sure.
That way it's on top of people's minds. But I do want to make kind of a disclaimer. Obviously, and everyone knows, Mike is not a doctor, but he is a man of knowledge and over a decade of experience. And so just make sure that as a listener, as you're learning from Mike and as you get on his website, he has some other podcasts he's been on his website. Listen to his advice and knowledge, but go search it for yourself. But don't fall into the tunnel of just the Google search. I think we're kind of in this culture that, oh, I have an ailment, I Google searched it, here's what I can get. And for me, one thing that you've brought to the surface is not everything you see meets the eye, whether it is from a PhD medical physician or from a consultant like you who has vast knowledge. So for those of you listening, make sure you do your homework. We're going to give Mike's information here in a minute, and that way you can follow up with him or whoever else he has, as a on his team. But so I want to circle back to, because it's important. You actually mentioned dealing with mental health and dealing with addiction. We can have another show later where maybe we dig into that a little deeper. What I would love to hear from you, for those people listening that may be struggling with that. You mentioned that being an entrepreneur and that work has kind of become your new drug, but work isn't the internal battle. Work is an external manifestation that we can fill our needs with. What have you done in your life internally through your journey, mentally, emotionally, to help overcome some of those things. I don't really believe a person permanently overcomes it. I just think we become stronger and smarter and can battle it a little. We become the wise samurai, right? Where we
So
can step into battle a little more prepared. What are some things that you would want to give the listeners? Someone right now that maybe today was a bad day. They need to hear something. What are some things that you could give them? Some tools in their toolbox that you've used outside of work that have helped you become the man you are today?
yeah, absolutely. So I'm very routine oriented now. Um, Fitness is a big part of my life, and I change up my fitness routine. In the summers, I like to be outside more. In the winters, I get more into, push-ups and strength training. I'm back into running again for the 15th time I come and go from running. Fitness
Yes.
is huge. Routine is massive for me. I need to stick to my routine. Um, about 6, 7 years ago, it was 2014 at the last company I worked for before I stepped out onto my own. Our team was doing pretty good. There was some internal combustion going on, and he brought in one of his best friends who's now my spiritual mentor, and I got into Kabbalah or Kabbalistic practices, which is Jewish mysticism. And she reads my birth charts every year and gives me guidance for that year on what the stars are saying I'm supposed to work on. I do daily listenings. I scan the Zohar, which is the original Aramaic text. So finding sort of a religious path that makes sense to myself has been super helpful. I grew up Catholic. It never really resonated, but I believe in a higher power. So Kabbalah or mysticism through the stars has helped it make sense to me and be more applicable. Finding my wife 5 years ago and having her be able to plug into those practices as well. She's in Coven class, which is like witch school. So she's a good witch, and she studies a lot of stars and learns about 5D living rather than 3D living. That's been very helpful. Daily reminders, like this morning I had a small bit of road rage. I was yelling at someone, and that's a failure. And I just coached myself the rest of the way to work, like unneeded. We're going to work on that tomorrow again. Come back to it. Why was it unneeded? What did I think I wanted to get out of it? What did I actually get out of it? How much was at stake to lose if it spiraled out of control? So I have real conversations with myself.
Yes.
I journal 3-4 times a week. In my journals, I've watched them grow. If you read a journal from 14, 15, man, it was sad. It was like, I hope this, I hope that. And now my journals have gotten to, thank you for the chaotic morning this morning. I know it's going to work out because the past 6 years have worked out.
Right.
So recognizing that the minute to minute is different than the month to month has been a huge ability. Talking in different tones, and just being honest with myself, but putting down the drugs, not drinking to get drunk, just drinking to enjoy a couple of beers, because that takes 2, 3, 4 days to get that out of your system and get back on the path.
Yes.
Yard work for me is massive because it just, my property, there's always something to do, man. And if there's not, I'll just go split wood.
Right.
August, I'll split wood. Really just finding authenticity in myself. We had our wedding, and I had a couple cousins who were out. We did the whole thing ourselves. And I mean, I was in my pajamas setting up the wedding up until about 10 minutes before I walked down the aisle, and I was cool as a cucumber, and people noticed it.
Yeah.
And I just told them, I said, I've been putting in a lot of work out here over the past couple of years, but that's just it is, everything I just mentioned, you're not going to start that tomorrow. You're not going to start it next year. I've been journaling for years.
Mm-hmm.
I've just been layering on as I go.
Yes. Yes.
And to your point, I don't identify with ADHD or depression or anxiety or bipolar or anger issues. I'm documented as having all of those. I identify with myself, and I just call, myself bat-s crazy. And it's easier for me to just say that than to identify with only one specific label, because then I think people might want to own that label, and I've released them.
Right.
But
Right.
I'll always be a little bananas. But Kabbalah will teach you that each lifetime is a new tikkun,
Mm-hmm.
and that tikkun leads you to a better path next lifetime, and then you just keep going. So it is a process, and I think this lifetime, I'll leave this lifetime as a better person than I started this lifetime. So I don't get too hard on myself for the times I slip up, because I do all the time. And that's important to realize too, quick, is when I do these podcasts, and I appreciate all the compliments you've given me. You know, this is an hour and a half. Don't heroize me, right? Don't take this and go, oh, he's got to, I'll hang up the phone and go yell at the dog. Right? But, you know what I mean? Taking too much out of this podcast and seeing me as something I'm not because I speak well and I can hold it together for an hour and a half is like seeing Jeff Bezos as a trillionaire and not recognizing the 19 years people called him a loser, because he technically was a loser. He's in his garage selling books. Like, that's not cool. That's not the Jeff Bezos we knew, right? So don't heroize too much and get down on yourself because you're like, oh, I heard this great podcast last night and I failed today. Man, the second I hang up this phone, I'm going to fail.
Yeah.
And that's okay.
We're all human, right?
We're all human. Just recognize it and get on the path. Just because you're on the path, you're not going to swing a 900, 1,000, bat 1,000. Just get on the path. That's the best place to start.
And if you fall down today, the best thing you can do is get back up as slow as you need to.
Yeah.
And just begin again. That's a beautiful thing.
Fall down 7, stand up 8.
That's exactly right.
Yeah.
Exactly right. And for some of us, you have to add 200 to that.
Yeah. To cover the week.
Yeah.
I know that. Yeah. I'm just very accepting of myself.
Yes.
And I think that's number one place to start.
Self-awareness. Self-awareness is the door to self-compassion. And that's a beautiful thing. Yeah.
Yep.
Hey, Mike, go back to your products real quick and touch on.
Yeah. Cool. So build 50 milligram CBD tablet, load your body up with that CBD goodness. They're priced at $74.99 for 60 counts. So you can take 2 a day. You can subscribe at $69.99. You're not going to find CBD less expensive than that. If for some reason you're financially struggling, email me. I'll make it less expensive than that. No problem.
Awesome.
Boost 10 milligram chewable, designed to take 2 to 3 during the course of a day. It does have electrolytes, which not everyone needs. Recover 25 milligram chewable with Magnolia in the evening. So the whole product system is designed to deliver up to 155 milligrams of CBD a day. That subscription is $99 a month. So you can get 155 milligrams of CBD a day for a month for 99 bucks. Dog will roll out this week, next week. It's a tablet. You throw it in your dog's bowl. Your dog eats it up with its food. Those are our base products. We're building more and rolling them out throughout the year. We have a 50 milligram chewable with vitamin A, C, D3E, and zinc for healthy immune system. We should have that to market in 4 or 5 weeks. We're doing a woman-specific line, thinking 75 milligrams of CBD with healthy vitamins and minerals to support them through their monthly cycles. And we're going to coach up to 2 tablets, 3 tablets a day. So we'll probably sell it in a 30-count bottle. Wow. We have some infused coffee rolling out. So you can start your day with infused coffee and your build. We have a chewable that we're looking at that has some really incredible pre and probiotics, healthy fermented fruit, chewable, fizzy, healthy sugar for your teeth. So our product line is a system, and it's meant to have everyday items with vitamins and minerals so that you'll take it consistently and always be increasing the amount of CBD in your body. Look at the science. Yeah. I mean, anxiety, they're saying 300 to 600 milligrams a day.
Wow.
A day. So we want to deliver a high quality CBD product, pair it with vitamins and minerals that'll help you have a successful day in high dose, high dose, high dose, high dose.
I will say for that, I think you said it was 99 a month for the whole system, build, boost, and recover.
Yeah,
Um,
on subscription.
that's on the subscription. That's a really, really good price for
It's
anyone that hasn't.
4,650 milligrams of CBD for $99 a month. I don't know if you can find CBD on the market that's less expensive than that.
Well, not
I
just
don't.
CBD, but any type of build recovery system.
Yep.
Just even the supplements I take, I keep, kind of keep on the market on those, and 99 bucks a month, that's a heck of a deal. So yeah, for sure.
Yeah. Again, I just reflect on the times that, I helped a 12, year old kid or a 5-year-old kid whose parents moved from Texas or Rhode Island or Florida, everything to get their kids CBD oil
Yeah.
so that they didn't have seizures. And man, I was broke. They were broke. I didn't have 5 kids. I didn't uproot and leave. Like, that's in my DNA that we keep talking about. I've looked in those people's eyes. I know what it's like to have to give up a meal or take a gas to get your cannabis. Man, if someone really needed it, I'd probably just mail them free product, to be honest with you. Honestly, if there's a listener out there who can't and they need it, email me. We'll send you a bottle, or we'll send you a bottle every month. We're not worried about it.
Awesome, man. That just shows how much you believe in your product and what you're doing. Mike, we're going to start wrapping up. I do this with every guest. It's a speed round, 5 questions, 1-word answers only are the rules. You ready?
Okay. Yep.
Regarding books, do you prefer digital or paper?
Paper.
Coffee or tea?
Coffee.
What's one guilty pleasure you have besides weed?
Bush Light.
Okay. One thing you can't live without?
My glasses.
Thank you for wearing your glasses. What's your favorite season? Fall, summer, winter, spring?
Fall.
Yeah, same, especially in Colorado. Oh my goodness.
Oh, yeah. Perfect.
Yeah. Mike, this has been awesome, brother. This has been not only educational, but inspirational. And I think we've given the people some really, really deep knowledge to consider from a variety of fronts. Folks, make sure you go to Mike's company's website, mountainmade.life. And like I said, we'll put that in the show notes. Mike, where can they follow you on social media? What's the best place?
Yeah, so we have a company page. It's at MNTMADE. Currently, so I told you I get my astrological charts read every year. This year, inside the charts, my challenge this year is to be silent. It's a very, very difficult year to be silent. So I'm actually off all of my personal social media. I logged off in April, and I won't be returning till next July. So personally, I'm not on social media, and I'm hitting this really difficult goal this year of being silent. So outside of the podcast, I have no interaction on any type of media. I've removed myself.
Give us that company handle again.
Yeah, MNTMADE, Mountain Made. And it's funny, most people abbreviate Mountain MTN.
Right.
Man, that Midwest accent, I see it as mountain. So MNT is how the company got his name, because I'm from Ohio and that's just what we do,
Right. I love it. I love it. All right. Go follow Mountain Made, MNTMADE on social media, folks. And again, check out the website. It's full of some great product and great information. Mike, once again, thanks, brother. This has been amazing.
And thank you. And thank you so much to all your viewers for taking the time to listen to a guy here in Colorado ramble on about cannabis, hemp, and weed.
Love it, man. If you'll hang on for a second, I'll close down the show and we'll hook up here in a second. Brothers and sisters, I hope you are safe during this time. We are still in the middle of a crazy season in life. But as we talked about today, the most important thing is, number one, loving yourself, being self-aware, love the ones around you that are closest to you, and find your path. Make that your mission this year during this time of turmoil and unease, I think the number one thing would be to find the place that you would like to call home, internally, mentally, spiritually, and physically. Thanks for listening to The Mitch Gray Show. Please follow us on social media at mgraymedia. Subscribe to the show and our YouTube channel, Mitch Gray Media, and we will talk to you soon.